Please do not change channel.
The Hangin' With Web Show is the internet's fastest growing web talk show series. The Hangin' With Web Show features professional, yet casual, in-depth interviews with creative arts and entertainment pros. Meet the people behind a digital revolution in creating more quality content than ever before in the history of media. The Hangin' With Web Show, hosted by award-winning author and journalist GW Pomichter.
Welcome to Hangin' With. I'm GW Pomichter. Thanks for logging on and tuning in. If you haven't already, go on down for us and hit subscribe. If this is your first time, thanks for hanging with us. We are here tonight, and we are hanging with Dragon Award nominee Charles E. Gannon, a three-time Nebula Award finalist, the author of Tales of the Terran Republic. The latest title is The Raising Cain, which is the book that was nominated for the Dragon Award. Is that right, Chuck?
That is correct.
All right. In addition to being a self-styled solo scribblemeister, who wrote that? Did you guys do that back there? You did that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, you did that. Charles is also a member of Sigma, a science fiction think tank. In addition to, the list is huge. Is there anything you don't do, Chuck?
I'm not big with polka.
No polka. So
Is that John Candy?
The clickbait for tomorrow is that Charles E. Gannon doesn't polka. So there's.
I'm gonna lose Minnesota and Wisconsin now. I figure, but what? Well,
we'll have to make up for it somewhere on the World Wide Web. So there's a lot we could talk about, but let's jump right into Tales of the Terran Republic. Right now, this is 3 books in the series. And what inspired this story? What was the catalyst that brought this out of you?
The story, or this universe, is
the universe, really, yeah,
has really been percolating around in me in one form or another for quite a long time. Actually, some of the characters that we see in the first book and that I referred to later, when I was my freshman year at college, as a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to do an extensive project. I went down to NASA in D.C. because at 19 years of age, you're too stupid to know any better. Walked in the front door, said, "What can you folks tell me about space stations and, a sustainable space culture and future?" And some very nice secretary said, "You just wait here." And about 5 minutes later, a very distinguished-looking gentleman with a shock of flowing white hair and a mustache that in German, truly, it should be called. In German, the word for mustache is Schnurrbart. And let me tell you, that does it justice. I spoke to and invited me for lunch was no other than Jesko von Puttkamer. For anybody who knows the entire sort of Wille von Braun Wunderkind, he was the youngest of them, and he just took a huge chunk of his day to explain to me the L5 project and the O'Neill Torus and all the rest. And although I presented on that factually, my last project was a novella set on L5 and political problems thereon. One of the characters in that was a fellow by the name of Nolan Corcoran. So for anybody who knows Fire with Fire from the series, that came all the way through from I was 19 to when I was much older, and we don't like to talk about that. But,
Okay, well, so we're on book 3, Raising Cain. Just nominated for the Dragon Award. Give us kind of the book blurb. What can readers expect to take away from Raising Cain?
Okay, so if people are familiar with the movies or the books, Swiss Family Robinson, which is of course a survival story in a new, sometimes inhospitable, sometimes very different land, and Ice Station Zebra, where you have a clandestine mission. A rendezvous that has a treasonous agent aboard, but you don't know who to the very end. I kind of mashed those up, threw in a little bit of Guns and Navarone style action, and also decided to ask the question about what if you run into I don't call them aliens, I call them exosapiens. What if you were to run into, though, an alien species that was disarmingly akin to you in terms of their shape and their interaction, but came from an entirely different evolutionary paradigm? How might you mistake it? And even if they're willing to be your friends, could sometimes it be the case that some friends are more dangerous than enemies? And
Wow.
that's the fastest micro version I can give you.
That's enough for my mind. Will be busy for a week sorting that out now, and that'll be after I read Raising Cain. So, so okay. This is. I would ask you how the book is going, but Dragon Award nominee. That pretty much says fans are liking it. So you're no stranger to recognition for your work. As we said at the beginning of the show, 3-time Nebula Award finalist. We also know that you were the American Library Association's 2006 Outstanding Book for your nonfiction, Rumors of War and Infernal Machines.
Yes.
Award nominee. Kind of big news this week. I've seen it all over announced on social media and things like that. What stands out about this kind of recognition to you? What really makes it something that's special to you?
This is going to sound incredibly hokey and canned, but unfortunately it's true, so people are just going to have to accept this. I kind of always see myself as the smiling face and the hand outstretched for the award, but there's an infinitude, a long line of ghosts, many past, many not simply on the stage, to which I owe this. I'm a huge amount of effort, and I like to see any success that I have as contributing to others in the same way. It would be, I'd be a jerk to say, well, I got all the good stuff, now I'm going to make it all about me. No. The more I get, the more I feel compelled to give.
Okay, he shut me down. How do you respond to that answer? That was it's not hokey. It's hopefully the way artists feel about their work and what their work does for other people. But more on the net, I know this is a fan-driven award too. So this is a way for you to share those accolades from your fans with the hard work that went into it. So you're going to Dragon Con this year, I take it?
You bet I am.
All right. Anything you're looking forward to the most about the con this year?
There are a bunch of fans which go to Dragon Con, which are sort of regulars. And they have been interested in this series from pretty much the get-go. And Dragon Con has been nice enough to give me sometimes an hour to just go into some of the background of the world, because the world building in this is extremely detailed. I know things about the world which it would probably scare people to know that I know, because the natural question is, does this guy have a life? But the reason, so it's not my first home, but it's a really great place to go back to, and I'm hoping that I get a chance to meet a bunch of people that have been fans that I've never met before, and make a few new friends. And I actually really tend to call them readers more than fans. I like having fans, but I'm conscious of the fact that science fiction readers, really, a lot of them do tend to be extremely, and I think this is a great thing, independently minded. They are not a herd mentality group, and I'm just honored that they keep coming back and deciding to read my books and come along for a ride that I try to make feel filled with big ideas, but also it has the immediacy of a technical.
Yeah, wow. We talked a little bit about building a world earlier, and I know you've been asked 1,000 times, and we've seen some of those interviews, and as our viewers are going to see some clips from those interviews here during the show tonight. But we also wanted to kind of encapsulate it for the World Wide Web, and so I tried to build a question. You have called your writing style immersive futurism. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know, in your opinion, what is the most important element of immersing your fans and building a universe that they can feel immersed in some of these alternative futures that you create?
Well, I have to say one thing, huh? Okay. I would say that in addition to writing so that I'm never inserting myself into the narrative. In other words, I don't want anybody to feel that there's a narrator present. You know, Tolkien will do these things, and so for 2 days they walk. No, who's doing that? Who's saying that? You know, God jumping in and saying they went for 2 days. No, that's not how it works. So I'm never trying to put myself in the narrative, and I go to some pretty extraordinary lengths to do that. The other thing is I have to believe it. That's one of the reasons I do the detailed world building, because, and this gets into readers again, who are, I think readers they always, let's put it like this, they surprise you so often that I've ceased to be surprised by it. In that they, if you don't believe what you're saying, if you're cutting a corner, if you're taking a cheap shortcut with a character, if you don't know the science behind what you're saying and you're not certain of it, or if you're inconsistent, my gosh, like bloodhounds, they will find that under the carpet and drag it to you and say, look, you didn't do this correctly. So part of the immersivity, which I think is what good games do as well, because I work in games as well, is you have to have it so believable in all its particulars, it has to be so consistent unto itself that when the person is reading it, they, if you will, when they put the book down, it's like they're waking up back into this world. They were so much present in that world.
I like that, because so you're no stranger to the convention circuit. You said there's some regulars that like to meet you there and see you, some regular readers. So we have just started on this journey into conventions and conferences and making the rounds, and we have noticed that it is an amazing place to see just about anything. And so we're asking some of our creators, what's the most unusual or unique experience you've had on the convention circuit?
Probably at Liberty Con, I walked into the con. I was there less than 5 minutes. I turned around, and one of my readers, who'd been with the series from the beginning, was dressed up in costume as one of the Australian Special Forces detachment that was sort of was trying to stay under the radar in the battle for Jakarta in Indonesia in the second book. And it was, and he just stood there smiling. I didn't even realize what was going on at first, and then it was sort of, oh my God,
wow.
Something out of the pages of my book at me.
That is amazing. How cool is that, just to turn around and see your character fleshed out for you by a reader? That is so cool. So you are a literature professor, if I read that correctly. Was.
Right, haven't been in the classroom since 2007.
Okay, and I know you've been asked, I saw other interviews, you've been asked a lot about how a literature professor becomes a science fiction author, and I love your answer. You're a science fiction fan who became a literature professor.
Exactly.
But on the topic of literature, I really wanted to get a question that would get you talking, because before I met you, I didn't know how this would go. So, I want to know, as science fiction and fantasy become more mainstream, more pop culture, more accepted forms of reading, are we creating sort of, especially, I just read an article recently that said Oxford has introduced a literature course which is television and cinema as literature, a modern literature course. Are we approaching a place where science fiction and fantasy is becoming sort of millennial literature, where right now you and I can sit and on one hand go Jules Verne and Isaac Asimov, and we can name them as figures in literature go. Is it becoming where we are becoming literature, where science fiction and fantasy is becoming the millennial literature?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And the yes is pretty obvious. The yes is certainly in the symbols, and in since I have to put my professor hat on, I have to say for any academics listening out there that when I use the word meme, I mean it in the common sort of vernacular of the moment, rather than its original Chomskyan definition. But I think the meme, the symbol of science fiction, and I'll even go more broadly than that, alterity, that things can be different than they are, and that's a worthwhile thing to look at. It has certainly pervaded our mass media culture. I mean, just take a look at the dominance of the MCU right now, the prevalence of Harry Potter, the success of The Martian. I mean, every place from, if you will, pure fantasy, and science fiction, it is getting airtime and it is getting acceptance that it did not have before. However, that's, to me, science fiction is entertainment, and that's a meme. Science fiction as inquiry, I think, is a slightly different creature. And what I mean by that is, for instance, you have people who go around saying, where's my flying car? You know, I've been promised that by science fiction for 50 years. Well, actually, you were promised it occasionally by the science fiction of inquiry. Who really promised it to you were the Jetsons and Star Wars and all these other things which adopt, if you will, the trappings of science fiction, and they use them to tell a wonderful, exciting tale, but the tale is usually not much about inquiry. I mean, if you look at Star Wars, and you turn the lightsabers into steel, and you turn the plastic armor into plate, you have gone back into essentially a sort of Arthurian mythos.
Yeah, well, if nothing else, some science fiction is not much broader than a simple hero's journey, while other science fiction, both pop culture and particularly in written word, is really about that spirit of inquiry. It's the what if. It is, and how much do we change? When you add a what if, how much of the human condition changes?
Right. I think that we can say one thing about although that sounds like it might be a little bit, I don't mean it as a denigration of science fictional memes or symbols, because the bottom line is, I think that we spend a long time, I know me growing up, I spent a long time, science fiction was a guilty pleasure. You know, people hid it if they were writing it behind their newspaper on trains. I can't remember the name of the English author who made a running gag out of that. But I think what it says is that we're able to shift to the future, to other worlds, as a really useful place to ask questions about our own without getting bogged down in the particulars of our day and age. It is, for instance, if you try to tell a story, you know, if for instance, you're making critique, even vague, even oblique, about modern power politics in something like the Jason Bourne series, it automatically triggers all of our sense of what's going on in the news and what does that mean and what sort of policies got us into what sort of situation. Science fiction and fantasy allows you to back off, ask many of the same sorts of fundamental questions, but you get out of the weeds.
Yeah, well, it's much easier. Well, we'll get away from the deeper stuff here for a minute, and we want the readers to get to know you a little bit. We know that your exposure to literature came from a young age. Your dad read Moby Dick to you, is that correct?
Boy, you guys have done some research. I don't think I've ever said that more than once or twice. It was an illustrated version, the highlights, I guess you could say.
The highlights. So, now, you're a dad, so what did or do you read to your children?
That's a good question. It's changed. My oldest is 19. My youngest is 9. My oldest, I think the thing that they probably would remember the most are some of the Narnia books and The Hobbit. Science fiction, I find, is a little, by the time they were ready for most science fiction, they were, okay, Dad, I got this. I can read. Thank you very much. And a lot of the Star Wars sort of serializations that took place for, I guess, they're sort of early YAs. They're a lot of them. There was a long series written that extends the arc of what happens from the time that Anakin is taken in as Obi-Wan's Padawan through to, well, we know how that all works out. And so they pick those up and gobble those up, and they continue reading them to this day. So, and very, very broadly, they are Catholic readers with a small c.
All right. Fantastic. Well, speaking of readers, writers or readers, what's on your nightstand right now?
What's on my nightstand are sleeping tablets to make sure I get a suck at night. What I'm doing right now, and what I'm reading right now, gosh, I'm in between things simply because, well, as the writers out there know, the more you write, the less you read. It's a sad thing, but a true thing. And I am right now just putting the final touches on Book 4, King's Mutiny, and I know what the next project is right after that. So I've got a little bit of a cascade that I'm keeping up with right now. But I'm trying to think. The last thing that made an impression on me was a really sort of synoptic history of China, going all the way back to if you will, prehistory, because it seemed to me that that has always been a good idea, but I only got my Chinese history in bits and chunks, and I think in order to understand some of the things going on in the world today, having a more complete, even if only sort of synoptic view of it, might be cool. So I went and I did that. And that actually then doubles back into my fiction, because China's a very major part in the future that I portray. So
okay, well, they like to have a little fun with me. So the next set of 2 or 3 questions, I don't know what they are. These are just get inside your head personality thing. These are things they grabbed from Facebook and Twitter, what the World Wide Web wants to know. So I'm just going to look up, really, right off the bat. Okay, all right, what song are you singing in the shower, man? See, I don't know what these are.
I'll show you how boring I am. The song I sing in the shower, the closest thing to it, is when I reach out of the shower to get my phone, which is always there, and it has an app on it called Tape a Talk, and it runs for as long as you go, as long as you want to talk. Because for whatever damn reason, in the shower is usually, if I have a sticky plot issue, that's where it gets resolved, and I have just enough ADD that I know I'll lose it if I wait to get out of the shower.
All right. Hey, that's World Wide Web. If you want to know what Charles E. Gannon does in the shower, you got to read the next book, because that's where it came from.
Wow, that's truly a loaded statement, I must say.
Okay, all right. Well, I wish I could say they got better from there, but have you ever? Okay, these are the we're showing our age now. Have you ever danced in the rain or played in puddles as an adult?
With my kids, absolutely.
With your kids, outstanding. Yeah, all dads have to raise their hand yes to that one.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you're doing your job right, you know. And danced in the rain. Sure, I did that in college.
Okay,
absolutely.
That counts. We'll count that. We'll count that. So, all right. So, 2 things that are on Charles Gannon's bucket list. 2 things that you haven't done yet, but you want to make sure you do.
Wow. You know, it's an odd question, because I really, that's not the way my mind works. I know bucket list, became a movie, and now it's the thing that everybody can talk about, and you've really got me stumped. Things that I would love to do, I would love to go into space.
Wow.
I don't know that I'll ever get the chance, but I would love to go into space.
Oh, wow.
And that really counts for 2 in a sense. One, get to orbit, and one get out. And the other, I would like to live long enough to see my great-great-grandchildren, because it's not impossible, however unlikely it may be, but that means I get to stay around and write a lot of books. So I'm going to bend that question a little bit, but there I bent it.
No, nice. Very, very, very nice. Okay, the last one of the fun questions. What is Chuck Gannon's perfect pizza?
We're having to talk in past tense. I'm diabetic, too, for the last... Perfect pizza is a time machine. And my perfect pizza really is lots of sauce, lots of cheese, some mushrooms, and don't get in my way.
And don't get in, just stay out of the way. Clear it off. That's right.
Here.
Here in the house, anything with shrimp on it goes. I get pushed out of the way, moved out of the way. There's like a tackling going on. All right. Well, Charles, I'll tell you what. Dragon Con is coming up, and your fans are looking forward to seeing you. I know your readers are. And you did make mention to the next in the series coming soon, and that is coming out 2017. Is that right?
It is February 2017, and it's a lot of things change in it. I don't want to give anything away, but it's one of the things that I've been doing with the first 3 books and even this 4th book are sort of doing homages, very, very sort of, I guess you could say, oblique or indirect homages to aspects that we saw in older science fiction that when you read those older science fiction books, I think we would probably consider the prose and some of the characters a little bit clunky. They show their age. They clearly don't speak to this cultural moment. So I try to essentially revisit some of the same tropes, but with that fresh lens. And this one is a little bit a book I really love, and you don't hear a lot of people who know it anymore, is Gordon R. Dixon's The Tactics of Mistake. And so that was kind of, if you will, that was my notional soundtrack playing in my hindbrain while a lot of this was being written.
Wow, fantastic. We can look for that in, you said February.
February 2017. You can find it earlier probably through eARC, which essentially is Bain releases electronic versions, also print versions, which are essentially uncorrected proofs. And there are fans out there who just grab those like nobody's business. So you might be able to find it 2 months earlier or something like that. While I'm on the issue of tactics and mistake, I am hearkening all the way back to the early part of our conversation where I was talking about, I guess you could say, paying it forward, and the more you get, the more you should give. One of the things that's really important in my readers, a lot of my readers, is very important to me are veterans. And one of the things I guess I'm very, very humbly glad for is that I'm not a person who served. My family did in World War II, and then cousins in Vietnam. My oldest son is right now, he's just starting PT at ROTC right now. Not this very second, but very soon. And
could be this very second with those guys.
Yeah, anything is possible. But at any rate, the thing that a lot of veterans have said is that they're surprised that I haven't been there because it rings true to them. And what I guess I would like to say is I want to owe and give a double bow of appreciation to our men and women in uniform, both for what they do and they sacrifice, and also for the generosity with which they have shared their experiences and their stories with me. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was listening.
On behalf of that community, thank you for doing us justice in your work, and thank you for appreciating that we appreciate you.
And the thing that I guess that when I say citizen soldier, the thing...
We appreciate it when a writer gets it right, and you should hear him at the Legion if they get it wrong. So
yeah.
So thank you very much, Charles. We have to wrap it up. We could talk all night long. Before we do, we want to send a special shout out to our friends over at Something Unique Magazine, Books, Chocolate, and Wine, the Florida Book News, Authors for Authors, the Nerdorama Network, the Famous Faces and Funnies. That list is just getting longer and longer, and we love it. And, of course, our great friends at Wordfire Press who helped us link up here with Charles Gannon. And we are so grateful for that opportunity to talk to you. We've been hanging with Charles E. Gannon, the author responsible for, among other and sundry, Tales of the Terran Republic, most recently Raising Cain, the 3-time Nebula Award finalist, and one of this year's 2016 Dragon Award nominees. Charles, thanks for hanging with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much. And you might want to let your viewers know that voting for the Dragon is coming to an end very quickly. And whether or not it's for me or whoever, it's a really great award. Support the award. Get out. Vote your favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We got our ballot. We submitted our ballot just the other day. And there are so many great categories on there. If you're a science fiction, fantasy fan, reader, viewer, watcher, or stalker, get your ballot and fill it out and vote for your favorites. The link for that will be down in the description of this video. Everybody, I'm GW Pomichter. We've been hanging with Charles E. Gannon. Remember, subscribe, log on, tune in, and see who we're hanging with next.
Who's who, what's hot and what's not. 2019 saw some amazing new creative talents, and now you can peek behind the scenes at the hottest indie creative artists in this year's edition of 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artist Advocates 2019 magazine. Published by the renowned And I Thought Ladies, this is a one-of-a-kind look into the brightest rising stars in the creative universe. Get yours today at magcloud.com and at andwethought.com.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Now on Amazon.com. War Calls, Love Cries, a Civil War novel by Mark Barie. Isaac Wells is an innocent farm boy living in upstate New York. His dreams are shattered by a treacherous brother and the onset of a devastating civil war. War Calls and Love Cries is a fast-moving historical narrative. It is an emotional roller coaster ride and a riveting must-read book that you will think about and talk about for a long time to come. War Calls and Love Cries is the kind of book you will cherish for a lifetime. On Amazon.com today.
Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hangin' With Web Show. I'm GW Pomichter. Thank you so much for logging on and tuning in. Take a minute right now. Hit subscribe. Come back over and over again. We got artists, authors, filmmakers, creative minds of all kinds on the Hangin' With Web Show. We are here at Authors in a Box in the Indian River Mall in Vero, Florida, hosted by author Joanne Fisher. And we are hanging out right now with author Debbie Zaken. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
I did that right. You guys are all going to read it in the comments there. Zaken. That's how you pronounce it. So now you can go out and you can tell everybody what to buy you for Christmas because you know the author's name. All right? Debbie is the author of Colliding Skies. Debbie, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, this is your first book.
It is my first book.
Wow.
Yes.
See, look, you can always tell you have a glimmer of hope behind your eyes. She still has that fresh author face. Yes, very nice. Tell us a little bit about Colliding Skies.
So Colliding Skies is a young adult sci-fi.
Okay.
I would call it a light sci-fi. So it's like
light
sci-fi for people who are like not so into sci-fi.
Sci-fi. Okay. All right. I'm following you there.
Not so into sci-fi.
Okay.
And
this is your sci-fi entry level.
Yeah.
That's right. This is you go into sci-fi through Colliding Skies. That's right.
Yeah.
And then later we'll pile on like Dune.
Yes.
That's right. Like the Frank Herbert stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So. You're a first-time author.
Mm-hmm.
I will ask you the same question your mother asked you. What?
Why?
Why? Yeah.
Well, I guess one, I've always, like most authors, always loved reading. I've always loved reading. And I don't know. I used to write as a child.
Okay.
I do remember that. And then I somehow stopped when in like middle school, high school, because I guess I didn't think it was cool enough.
That's because our parents look at us and go, no. Law school. Med school.
But I always kept on reading, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, I don't know, I just had this idea, this idea for the story came to me, and I said, all right, I'll try it.
Awesome.
And unfortunately, I got hooked and really enjoyed it.
As one does.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just got more involved.
If you have an artist in your brain and you indulge that artist one time, they own you from now on. They do. They come right out, and now you have to write.
Yeah.
You're a writer.
Just got more and more involved in the writing community and the writing process, and
So have you been making the rounds, doing some signings and doing some events like this?
This is my third event.
Okay.
My book came out in March of this year, 2018. So
you're meeting some readers.
I'm meeting some readers.
What do they think so far?
So far, so good. I mean, I've been, I avoid checking reviews. I have somebody who does that for me.
Very wise.
And they send me all the good stuff.
There are two places that a new writer never looks. Number one, early reviews.
Yes.
Because you don't want to know yet.
Yeah.
Get used to the community first. Number two, royalty reports. Stay away from the royalty reports.
True.
You can become obsessed.
Yes, you can.
That the first-time author, generally speaking, will end up going like once a day. Did anybody buy my book? Did anybody buy my book?
Yeah.
You have to get away from it. we tell our first-time authors there are always two places that you shouldn't look. One is obviously your early reviews because you really don't want to know yet.
Yeah.
You want to ease in. And then the next one is your royalty reports.
Yeah.
Because you can check, as an independent or a small press author, you can check those every day, and it can become an obsession.
True.
And here's the truth, guys. You don't want to know till the end of the month. You want your first $4.50 check to be a surprise. It's a good surprise. It's just if you're watching it grow one nickel at a time, it's going to frustrate you.
Yes.
We don't want you to do that. So you said you just kind of had the story for Colliding Skies. So where did this come from?
That's a good question. I think the main idea came to me from a song, which sounds really lame as I say it out loud, but it did came to me from a song.
Pretty cool to me. I think that's pretty cool.
I just remember the moment.
Every time I heard a song, I could write a new book. Yeah, baby.
I just remember the moment. I was driving, had dropped off my kids
Do you remember
at
the song?
school. Yeah, I do.
What was it?
Can I say it?
Yeah.
It's a song by a British band called Muse, called Starlight.
Starlight by Muse.
Yeah.
You know what? We're going to drop a link down below so everybody else can hear what you heard.
Okay.
And then they'll want the book.
So, so I was just driving, and I've heard that song a million times, but then it just sort of, I just saw like a video, like an old school MTV video in my head, and then I'm like, wow. And then I just started thinking about it more and thinking about it more. And I honestly, no, I'll be honest, I played the song on repeat like 20,000 times. And towards the end of that day, I kind of had the basic idea.
Story in your mind, yeah.
And then I found the key that works for me as an author and inspiration is actually really music.
It is. Believe it or not, and you said it sounded really lame to you, but you want to hear something really cool. One of our Hanging with Web Show alumnus is New York Times bestselling author Kevin J. Anderson. And he writes a series of steampunk fiction novels, all based on his reactions to the band Rush.
Oh, that's really cool.
And last year, when we interviewed him for the first time, he was putting out an anthology series that he was actually working on in collaboration with the band Rush.
Oh, wow.
So, and they were a series of authors writing. It was 2113, which was based on 2112 by Rush.
That's awesome.
And so he was collaborating with some other authors and with the band to produce some things. So music is art. It's storytelling.
It's definitely storytelling.
It's storytelling in 3 minutes as opposed to 200 pages.
300, but who's counting?
We are. No, we don't count pages, people. We count words. Every word counts. That's right. So give us the book blurb. Tell us a little bit about the story here.
So the story is about a girl called Sky, and she's kind of a, very high-achieving, typical high school student. She's a senior, and she kind of has all her life mapped out. And then something happens, which is like, in short, aliens land on Earth. Which
does tend to put a little bit of a wrinkle in your 5-year plan, because that's not on most people's 5-year plans.
Yeah, and then she kind of ends up meeting one of the aliens, and they don't really, we're not going to spoil it, but let's just say there's some romance, and there's some interspecies stuff, and it's kind of fun. And we never really know what the intention, but the aliens are here to help humankind.
Okay.
But we're not sure. Are they really or are they not? You have to read the book to find out.
The notion of the unknown is always just that. It's unknown.
Yes.
And anything that we apply to the unknown is our own speculation. So if you're a naturally frightened person, they're here to invade.
Right.
And if you're a naturally hopeful person, they're here to help out.
Right.
And in point of fact, I'm sure aliens, much like people, have their own agenda.
They do.
That's
they do.
right.
Yeah.
So we don't get to know what that... You got to read the book to find out what their agenda is and how this romance is going to work out. See?
Or not.
Or not.
Yes.
That's right. It does happen. Is this a standalone work, or are you working on the follow-up?
The sequel is coming out next year, which is like literally around the corner, in 2019, next year. Probably, I don't have a date yet, but probably towards like the summer of 2019.
Towards the summer 2019?
Yeah. And it's a 2-book series, so that will be...
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, from that first idea popping into your head until now, you've been out talking to readers, tabling and working as an author.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, welcome to the creative community.
Yeah.
And secondly, what's that been like for you?
It's been really really awesome, honestly. You know, a lot of my interactions, because of the genre I'm in YA, a lot of my interactions with fans and readers has been through social media, and so it's really awesome. All of a sudden, you're like kind of going about your day, and I don't know, going to the supermarket, and all of a sudden you get a tweet from a reader saying, "Oh my God, I love this book. So, thank you so much, such a great book." And you're like, wow, if they only knew how not glamorous I am as I put that gallon of milk in my shopping cart. But yeah, it's been really awesome.
It is. It's a lot of fun to see people react to you as an artist.
Yeah.
Because in your daily life, everybody who knows you is just like, she went to the store, or she's
right.
going to pick something up from school or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're reading about yourself online as if you were a whole other person.
Yeah.
That author is so this, and you're like, really, I'm not. I don't know anything. Who's that person you're talking about? So it's really kind of cool. Writers form good writing habits if we're lucky. Okay, we have a favorite place. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite place to write?
My favorite place is actually on my kitchen table.
Your kitchen table?
Yeah. But in a specific seat. It has to be the seat that faces the window so I can look at our backyard.
Nice.
With a cup of coffee or tea towards the end of the day, depending on what time it is. And water. And I always have music playing in the background.
Always have music playing in the background? Keeps you motivated, right?
Yeah.
Favorite writing snack?
Favorite writing snack? Probably something that has to do with chocolate. So depending on... it's either...
That's just favorite snack, period. That's
sometimes it'll be like cookies.
Cookies are good.
Some kind of chocolatey sort of cookie.
Yeah.
Or just, chocolate.
Just chocolate.
Yes.
Just bring on the chocolate.
Yeah, but I do need
You want
coffee.
100,000 words, you bring her chocolate.
And
That's
coffee.
the way it works. And coffee.
I can't function without coffee.
I don't blame you. With this Doweyko coffee right over there. And refill cups, just in case. Keep them lined up. It's like, one on deck at all times. So, writing rituals. Do you have any specific things that you go through? Yeah, you have music.
Yeah,
right?
The music.
What kind of what genre? What kind of music do you like to listen to when you're writing?
Usually I do like a lot of alternative rock, which is what news is. So usually I have something streaming online that's kind of like that.
Very cool.
It can't be too loud though. It has to be just in the background so it doesn't disrupt
So it stays in your head instead of being
Yeah. What else? Writing ritual. Really just that. That, coffee, and I need water, and quiet.
And quiet.
I don't like to write when there's other people in the house.
I don't blame you. They're distracting.
Yeah.
And they ask questions that you don't know the answers to yet.
Yeah.
They'll read over your shoulder and they'll say...
That is the worst. Reading over your shoulder.
Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, what's going to happen now? And you're like, I don't know. I haven't read it yet. It's like building a world. You can't come up to rock number 3 and ask me what I'm going to do with rock number 4. I haven't figured that part out yet. Right. It's a puzzle. We have to wrap it up. Look, I told you she was going to do that to us. We need to wrap it up. Fine. We're going to say thank you to some of our partners and our friends. We want to thank Something Unique Magazine, Space Coast Comics, Famous Faces and Funnies, our good friend Yvonne Mason at Off the Chain Radio over on Block Talk Radio. We want to thank Pound the Grape in Melbourne Square Mall. We want to thank you for subscribing, for tuning in and logging on and hanging out with us while we hang out with Debbie Zaken, the author of Colliding Skies. Guys, check out the links down below. Remember, stay tuned in, stay logged on, and see who we're hanging with next.
Authors, filmmakers, producers, anybody that has anything to do with creating independent stuff, comic book authors, musicians. Make sure you take advantage of the 2019 Indie Originals Live Talent Competition, going on now at www.indieoriginalslive.com. This is your exclusive opportunity to become an official award-winning independent creator to use that in your marketing. Enter today at www.indieoriginalslive.com.
Not every phoenix is reborn from the ashes. When dark fairies turn their powers loose in Atlanta, a young water phoenix must overcome her own mistakes to save mankind from wishing itself to Armageddon. Begin Michael J. Allen's epic 5-book series with Ashes of Raging Water, available for a limited time exclusively as a part of the Cursed Lands 20-novel box set, coming May 7th on Amazon, Nook, or Apple Books. Pre-order now for $1 and get 12 free stories as the authors give to you. Learn more at CursedLandsBoxSet.com.
Now on Amazon.com, ICoin from author Jeremy Mosby. It's an alternate reality, and the leader of the planet ICoin is none other than Benjamin Franklin. When corrupt officials threaten not only ICoin but the Earth as well, an unlikely chosen one must face dark foes to save the Earth and ICoin alike. Author Jeremy Mosby takes readers on a superhero's adventure through this compelling and imaginative alternate universe. Get ICoin on Amazon.com today.
Joanne Fisher's The Spanish Doll. Secrets in Italy? Oh yes. Her beauty strikes him like a thunderbolt sent by the goddess Venus. When Fiore is given a peculiar gift, a Spanish doll, she is thrown into a whirlwind of entangled passion, money, secrets, and love. Get swept away today by Hangin' with Web Show featured author Joanne Fisher's The Spanish Doll. Available now on Amazon.com.
Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hangin' with Web Show. I'm GW Pomichter. We are at Authors in a Box in the Indian River Mall in Vero, Florida. And we are hanging right now with author Arthur Doweyko. Did I do that right?
Close enough.
Not far enough off to make you mad, just far enough off to confuse you. And Arthur is the author of As Wings Unfurl and Algorithm.
Yes.
All right, man. Thank you very much for coming over and hanging with us
today.
Thanks
for having me here.
First of all, how's the show going for you?
Well, it's been slow. A lot of people are Christmas shopping, and they're always looking away. So I really have to stick my leg out from under the table and to catch their attention.
Well, I usually find if you trip the kids, it slows the parents down a little.
Right.
But but they're fast.
They are fast. They scurry away.
They scurry away before you can get them sometimes. All right, so we're artists. We do what it takes. All right, so let's talk about As Wings Unfurl. We'll start there. All right, tell us a little bit about the book.
All right, it's the second book that I've written. It's about a Vietnam War veteran who returns from the war, missing a part of his leg. He's addicted to morphine. He feels himself a coward and really not much to live for. And he's working out of an old bookstore in Newark, New Jersey that nobody actually goes to. That's how it starts. It gets better, I promise.
Uphill from there.
Exactly. There's only one way to go. And so one day...
All my vets out there are going, wow, dude, really?
Yeah, there's a sleeper.
Yeah.
But,
no, he wasn't watching you. Fictional story. Any resemblance to your life is entirely intentional. Okay, so...
So, what happens? What makes it interesting? So one day, somebody steps into the store right after an attempted robbery, claiming to be his mental block. Claiming to be his guardian angel. Of course, he could have asked, "What were you before?" But she showed up, and it turns out that she's not really a guardian angel at all, but she knows everything about him, and. They're about to step off into an adventure of a lifetime. And obviously all books are adventure of lifetimes. But this one focuses on a rather malign, or malignant, I should say, set of so-called angels who are about to turn the tables on mankind and kind of reverse what they did in establishing us here to begin with many years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Where do you go from that?
No doubt. No, I mean, you hit everything. You got some paranormal things happening there. You've got a deep character development in the story of your main character, your lead character. What drew you to this story?
I lived through the Vietnam era, and I saw a lot of people that never came back, and I saw a lot of Vietnam vets treated very poorly. So it's stuck in my mind for many years, and I figured maybe it's time to get one of these guys to be a hero, despite himself. So the angel, so-called angel, does help him get around his addiction and gives him a new purpose in life, that purpose being to save mankind of all things.
And you know what, guys? Y'all know me on the show. There is no better call to action if someone has to save mankind than a down on his luck vet.
Right.
Because there's a hero in there somewhere.
Well, in fact, he did something heroic. He just blames himself for a number of deaths that occurred, and he can't get past it. So he's got this huge guilt complex, that fed his addiction to morphine, which was, of course, needed because he had his leg amputated at the scene. So he's not been doing well. And so the way it works is this so-called angel reveals herself to him bit by bit. At first, you really think she is an angel, but gradually you realize that she's not, that she's something very, very different. That was something we've never encountered before. And she's dealing with other folks much like her that have a really bad motivation, a dark motivation.
You can see it. He's trying so hard not to spoil it.
I don't want to give you. I don't want to tell you. That's enough.
That's right.
That's probably it.
But at the same time, you do want to buy this. You want to see this book.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what drew you to parallel those kinds of stories? You had a Vietnam vet down on his luck. You wanted to raise him up into a hero.
Oh,
But
sure.
then you have an angelic superhero,
Right.
or supernatural, element to your story. What drew you to want to parallel those things together, to push, mash them up, as it were,
Sure.
and create your world?
It was an experience I had while going to Catholic grammar school. This is a while ago. Where we were taught about guardian angels, of course. In fact, I have to say that Catholic school was a great eye-opener for me because it was the first time I realized how the world worked. There was a God, there was all this stuff arranged for us. I'm not saying it's wrong, but as a child, it was an amazing thing because until then I didn't know how things worked. And here was a whole plan of how it worked. And one of those things was the guardian angel. So I didn't take much stock in it, except for one day I was walking to school, and as usual, as kids daydream. They're thinking about something else. I was thinking about something else, and I, for no reason at all, stopped at a street corner because I was just going on across streets without really looking. Kids do that all the time.
As we did, yes.
Yeah, I do this all the time. And so this one moment I stopped, and a car or a truck just zoomed by. That would have knocked me out or killed me. And I thought right away of the day before where I learned about guardian angels. I figured, well, that must have been a guardian angel just tugged at me. I felt a tug, I think. So my imagination raced ahead, and I never forgot that moment. So that moment locked in with somebody desperate for meaning in his life. And I figured, okay, so if there are guardian angels, what would they do with this person? Maybe they're not really guardian angels. That's my background in science and science fiction. I wanted a reasonable reason why there would be such a creature, and I think I came up with one.
I like the idea that you seem to have taken that whether you would subscribe to the idea that we have a guardian angel or whether you wouldn't. If there's a being, if there's something that exists, it has an agenda of its own, and we can't know that agenda. Maybe you feel like your life was saved, and that's awesome.
Right.
But you'll never know why. If that served another person or another entity's agenda, or your own.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I like the idea that you've taken the guardian angel and said, well, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe their agenda is not altruistic or what we ascribe it to be. And a lot of writers in recent years, especially, and I will say this, I give credit to our teachers growing up. Catholic school children tend to be really, really, really questioning people. We look at what we were taught and the environment we were taught in, and we tend to question everything. And I've talked to so many other Catholic school children who have said, when I grew up, I thought about this, and I asked this question, I asked that question. And I'm reminded of, even comedically, I'm reminded of the movie Dogma.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, both Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are Catholic school children and grown up, and they said, no, we're going to question all of that.
Uh-huh.
And we do that a lot, and you've done that in a way that was, like you said, science fiction-y and science-based, where you say, hey, okay, maybe it's there, that's what I was taught. Maybe it's not what I thought it was.
Right. What else could it be?
That's kind of neat.
Right.
That's a really neat question to ask people. What are readers thinking?
I think by and large they enjoy it. It's an unusual science fiction book because if you're familiar with the film noir mysteries, detective stories of the 40s or so, where everything is kind of gray or dark, There's a lot of dark alleys. There's a lot of strange things going on in cities. It's very urban, and that's what this feeling is in this story. It's really tough to take something that's a religious dogma and warp it into a science fiction story, which is what I think I accomplished, and that people get a kick out of that because it's giving shining a different kind of light on what we assume is dogma.
What's a perspective?
It could still be true. For instance, in the story, it's pretty much assumed that the religion was correct, that a lot of these religions that point to are coming into being only a few thousand years ago, maybe 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, right? And everything before that didn't exist. Okay? So how do you get that into a story using science? And that's a tough one because it's almost creationism, but it isn't. There is a way to formulate a scenario where we did come into being only about 10,000 years ago, and all that fossil stuff has an explanation.
I like that.
It's in there.
I like that.
I can't tell you what it is.
Really, really cool. So, I'm working on algorithm. All right, forget about it. Go that way. Wow, behind the camera, they're nosy. They love your T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your Dragon Con T-shirt. Are you a Dragon Con attendee?
I was. I in fact was on a panel where we discussed how to live forever. Yeah. It's one of the things we do at Dragon Con.
It is. He's not telling them. That's the true statement. Wow. That is, for those of you that aren't familiar with the convention circuit, Dragon Con is certainly the East Coast's largest, most prolific convention, and arguably growing fast enough to give everybody in San Diego a run for their money.
85,000 people this past summer.
Yep, and it's 5 central hotels, numerous other motels, hotels, and etc. And it's downtown Atlanta's. It's downtown Atlanta.
They take over the city.
It's not a convention center. It's a city. The parade from Dragon Con is, whether you guys know this or not, is
awesome.
Is Atlanta's largest parade. Actually,
I can believe it.
During the year, is the Dragon Con parade.
Yeah.
We always encourage our convention followers to do that, and I'm not going to read that card because I'm going to ask him about algorithm. He's going to tell me about so tell me about algorithm.
Yes, Algorithm is my debut novel. It's rather long for a debut novel, but hey, I had to tell the story, so there it was. It was that long. It's a story of our origins, our destiny, and our purpose, and it's told from a perspective of pure science. Of course, we thread in a bunch of science fiction to make it fun, but it involves a young boy chasing a ball through a basement window that it crashed through. He wanted that ball really bad, got into the cellar, fell into a pile of coal. His hand grabbed one piece of coal and he noticed a shiny golden streak in it. And later on he found out it was a gold medallion. He ignored it, being a kid, just had this as a souvenir, but by the time he was 20-something, he was a professor in university and had a chance to analyze that medallion. The medallion was found to have DNA code written in it, and whose DNA? Ours. And this is a this is an artifact that got caught in something that became coal. Now, if you research coal, you'll find out
it's organic.
It's organic. It takes a while to form. At least a few thousand years, as much as 100 million years. Hard to date the coal because it's coal. So the next feature is that we have characters in this that are Nazis, aliens, a chance to leave the Earth and get to the planet or the thing that actually where we stemmed from, where we came from.
He's got Nazis. He's got aliens. He's got other planets. He's got what I believe archaeologists are now referring to as exotic artifacts.
Yeah.
Is the correct terminology for it. I believe when an artifact doesn't fit the current archaeological record,
that's right.
It's an exotic artifact. And he's got everything. One book. Huge. Check out Algorithm. We're going to put links down below. We've been hanging out with Arthur All right, I'm going to try it.
Doweyko.
Doweyko. Almost had it. All right, we've been hanging out with Arthur Doweyko, the author of As Wings Unfurl and Algorithm. As we wrap it up, we want to say thanks to our partners and our friends over at Space Coast Comics, Jake Estrada and David Grace, our good friends at Something Unique Magazine, our great friend Rick Shea at Famous Faces and Funnies, Off the Chain Radio with author Yvonne Mason, and our dear friends at Pound the Grape. We have been here all day long at Authors in a Box in the Indian River Mall, hosted by our good friend author Joanne Fisher. And we hope you'll stay tuned in and you'll stay logged on. Remember to hit subscribe. Check the links down below, everybody. Keep coming back to see who we're hanging with next.